The conference room on the 42nd floor had windows running floor to ceiling, looking straight down over downtown Chicago. 17 executives from Thornfield Industries sat around that mahogany table, their combined net worth probably outpacing a small country's GDP. And somewhere in that room, Harrison Blackwood, my boss, was about to learn exactly what happens when you steal 8 months of someone's work. The encrypted file icon popped up on the projection screen. Password required. Harrison's expression shifted from confident to confused in about 3 seconds, the specific kind of confusion that shows up right before panic sets in. He clicked again. Same message. His fingers started moving faster across the laptop keyboard, that professional smile beginning to fray at the edges. Just a technical glitch, he announced to the room, voice still holding steady. Give me 1 moment. 1 moment stretched into 2, then 5. The executives shifted in their leather chairs. Someone coughed. Diane Rothschild, CEO of Thornfield Industries, glanced at her watch. A Patek Philippe worth more than my annual salary. Harrison's collar seemed to tighten. A bead of sweat formed at his temple. 3 floors below, in my newly assigned basement office next to the server room that hummed like a mechanical beehive, I sat with my own laptop open. The meeting streamed live on my screen. Courtesy of the standard internal conference room feed, everyone forgot was accessible from anywhere in the building. I took a sip of coffee, watched, waited. Before I go any further, something worth mentioning. This channel just hit its first milestone, and the goal now is reaching 2,000 subscribers. That number stands for something. A community of people who appreciate stories about standing up when standing up actually costs something. The subscribe button is there for a reason. No pressure, just an option for anyone who wants to be part of where this goes next. As for who I am, and how I ended up in a basement office watching my boss's career implode in real time. My name is Dominique Chan. On paper, I was a senior strategy consultant at Blackwood & Associates, one of Chicago's mid-tier consulting firms with big-tier ambitions. The kind of place that serves LaCroix in glass bottles during meetings and calls the break room a rejuvenation space, but still expects junior analysts to sleep under their desks during crunch time. I grew up in Seattle, the daughter of 2 public school teachers who believed intelligence without empathy is just calculation, and success without integrity is just survival. We weren't wealthy. We weren't struggling either. We lived in that comfortable middle-class range where you can afford family vacations, but you drive 12 hours instead of flying, and eating out means the local Thai place, not anywhere with cloth napkins. Those lessons left marks, the good kind. The kind that makes you remember the janitorial staff has names and families. That the nervous intern presenting in this morning's meeting was you 3 years back. That arrogance and confidence are separated by exactly one thin line called respect for other human beings. My parents taught me to work hard, but they also taught me that how you climb matters as much as where you land. Those lessons felt out of place in the consulting world, where phrases like crushing it and dominating the market got thrown around like confetti at a parade. But those same lessons were also why I was good at my job. Genuinely good. The Thornfield Industries account showed up on our radar 8 months before that conference room disaster. It came through a referral from a past client, which is how the best accounts always arrive. Word of mouth from someone who trusts you not to waste their time or their money. Thornfield built industrial automation equipment. Robots basically, but the kind that build other things inside factories, not the kind that vacuum floors. They were dealing with what their VP of operations called systematic efficiency degradation, which in plain language meant things that used to run smoothly now ran terribly, and they were bleeding money trying to figure out why. The potential contract sat at $8.7 million over 3 years. For a firm our size, that wasn't just a big fish, it was a whale. The kind of account that funds expansion, upgrades, and year-end bonuses that actually feel like bonuses. Harrison called me into his office the day after the initial contact came through. His office sat in the northeast corner of the building, angled to catch morning light that made everything look ready for an architecture magazine spread. The man understood aesthetics, I'll give him that. Dominique, we've got something special here, he said, gesturing toward the chair across from his desk, a Barcelona chair, original Mies van der Rohe, which he mentioned to literally everyone who sat in it. Thornfield Industries, they're looking for a comprehensive operational overhaul. This is exactly the kind of transformational work we've been positioning ourselves for. Positioning ourselves. He had a way of using we that somehow always meant I whenever credit was on the table. I'd like you to take point on the research and strategy development. Build out the pitch. Run the analysis. Develop the implementation framework. I'll handle client relations and the final presentation, of course, but this is your chance to really show what you can do at the senior level. Translation. Do all the work and I'll carry it across the finish line and collect the glory. But that's how consulting worked. You paid your dues, proved yourself, eventually earned your own corner office with overpriced furniture. Unfair, but it was the system. I'm on it, I said. That night I went home to my Lincoln Park apartment, a one-bedroom with a view of a brick wall and rent that made me question my life choices every month, and started reading everything available on Thornfield Industries. Annual reports, press releases, industry sector analyses, patent filings, LinkedIn profiles of their executive team, customer reviews, regulatory complaints, employment records, all of it. The first month was pure research. The second was data analysis, maintenance records, production metrics, supply chain timelines, workforce allocation patterns. I built spreadsheets that had spreadsheets of their own. I built models that predicted failure points with unsettling accuracy. By the third month, the pattern became clear. Thornfield's problems weren't technical. They were organizational. The company had grown by acquisition, swallowing 7 smaller competitors over 12 years. Each acquisition dragged in different systems, different processes, different corporate cultures, and nobody had ever unified any of it. It was like building a house where every room had different wiring, and then wondering why the lights kept flickering. The equipment wasn't failing. The people running it were working under contradictory protocols. The fix wasn't new machinery. It was organizational restructuring paired with comprehensive workforce retraining and systems integration. Complicated, yes. Expensive, absolutely. But compared to the $43 million they were losing every year to inefficiency, a bargain. I built the pitch over the following 5 months. Not just slides, anyone can make slides. I built a full implementation roadmap. Phase-by-phase breakdowns, risk assessments, ROI projections across 3 budget scenarios, case studies pulled from similar transformations in adjacent industries, a detailed comparison of their current state against a projected future state. I even designed a custom framework I called the Integrated Operational Coherence Model, which sounds fancy but really just meant make sure every part of your company is actually talking to every other part. Each week I updated Harrison. He'd nod, offer something vague like strong work or keep pushing, then go back to whatever he did all day. From what I could tell, a lot of lunch meetings and LinkedIn posts about leadership. My colleague Blake Jensen helped with some of the financial modeling. Blake was one of those genuinely good people who somehow ended up in consulting anyway. Tall, permanently rumpled, with a Midwestern earnestness that made clients trust him instantly. "This is legitimately brilliant," he said one evening, reviewing my organizational restructuring framework. We were still in the office at 8 p.m., which counted as early by consulting standards. Like publish a paper in Harvard Business Review, brilliant. You know Harrison's going to take full credit for this, right? That's the job. No, but it's reality. Blake gave me a look, disappointed, not surprised. You're better than this place, Dom. You know that? Better doesn't pay student loans. He didn't argue. He had his own loans. The pitch came together like a symphony. Every section flowing into the next. Every data point reinforcing the larger narrative. Every recommendation backed by 3 layers of evidence. Not just good. Airtight. I sent the final version to Harrison on a Wednesday afternoon, 2 weeks before the scheduled presentation. The email was simple. Thornfield pitch complete. All materials attached. Let me know if you need any adjustments. He responded 4 hours later. Excellent. Let's meet Thursday morning to review. Thursday morning I walked into his office with a leather portfolio and the confidence of someone who'd spent 8 months building something undeniable. Harrison sat behind his desk, my pitch deck already open on his monitor. He looked up when I walked in, and something in his expression made my instincts prickle. A look I'd seen before, usually right before someone delivered news they'd carefully dressed up to sound like it was for your own good. "Sit," he said, gesturing at the Barcelona chair. He said, "Dominique, this work is exceptional, truly exceptional." He said it warmly, like he genuinely meant it. The research depth, the strategic framework, the implementation roadmap. It's exactly what Thornfield needs. Thank you. I think we've got a really strong case, which is why I'm going to handle the presentation personally. The sentence dropped between us like a stone into still water. I kept my expression neutral. Of course, that was always the plan, right? You handling the final presentation? Yes, but I want to clarify the scope. Harrison leaned back, fingers steepled in that pose executives adopt right before explaining why something bad is actually good. The Thornfield executive team has specific expectations around seniority and experience. Diane Rothschild is old school. She values gray hair and decades in the field. She needs to see someone who matches her level of gravitas. Gray hair. Harrison was 52 to my 31. Never mind that I'd built every piece of the strategy he was about to present. I understand, I said, because what else was there to say? I knew you would. You're a team player, Dominique. That's what I value about you. He smiled, warm, almost paternal. There'll be other opportunities for you to lead client presentations. Accounts where the cultural fit is more appropriate for your level. My level. As if competence had levels. As if the 8 months I'd poured into this project sat somehow below the single hour he'd spend presenting it. But I smiled back, nodded, played my part. One more thing, Harrison said as I stood to leave. I'll need you to walk me through the technical details, make sure I'm fluent in every nuance, and send me all the supporting files, the raw data, the analysis models, everything. I want to be ready for deep dive questions. Absolutely. I'll set up time for us to review. Over the next week I spent 12 hours briefing Harrison on the pitch I'd built, explaining the research methodology, walking through the financial models, clarifying the implementation timeline, answering every hypothetical Thornfield might throw at him. He was a fast study, I'll admit that. By our second session he was already talking about the strategy with the confidence of someone who'd built it himself. The language shifted subtly when I was researching their acquisition history, my framework for operational coherence, the model I developed. Blake noticed. We were grabbing coffee in the break room, rejuvenation space, when he brought it up. He's not even pretending it's collaborative anymore. He's just straight up claiming ownership. It's fine. It's not fine, Dom. You should say something. Say what? Please credit me appropriately when you present my work? That's career suicide. So is letting people walk all over you. I'm playing the long game. Blake looked at me like he wasn't sure I was playing a game at all, just getting played. Maybe he was right. The presentation was set for Tuesday 9 a.m. The night before, Harrison sent an email at 11 p.m. subject line. Thornfield presentation, change of plans. The body. Dominique, after further consideration, I think it's best if you're not in the room for tomorrow's presentation. Thornfield's team is already going to be a crowd, and too many people from our side might feel overwhelming. Plus, I need you holding down the fort here in case any other clients need attention. I know you understand. Thanks for all your work on this. HB. Holding down the fort, like I was a receptionist covering phones, not the architect behind the entire strategy he was about to present. I read the email 3 times, felt the anger rise like mercury in a thermometer, hot and contained. Then I did what consultants do best. I analyzed the situation logically. Harrison wasn't just taking credit, he was actively erasing my involvement. Keeping me out of the room meant nobody at Thornfield would ever know I existed. If the pitch succeeded, it was entirely his win. If it somehow failed, well, I'd built it, so maybe he'd find a way to make that my fault too. 8 months of work. 80-hour weeks. Weekends sacrificed. A strategy strong enough to turn a $43 million loss problem into a growth story. And I was being told to hold down the fort? The anger settled into something colder, sharper. I opened my laptop and got to work. The Thornfield pitch existed in several places. Shared drives, Harrison's own computer, the backup server, cloud storage. Over the months of building it, I developed a habit of password protecting sensitive files. Security, I called it. Making sure preliminary work didn't accidentally leak before it was ready. Harrison had the final presentation deck, the polished slides, the executive summary. What he didn't have, what he'd never thought to ask for, were the passwords to the underlying systems. The financial models backing the ROI claims? Password protected. The research and analysis database? Password protected. The implementation framework documentation? Same story. Every password different, complex, stored nowhere but my own memory. I'd built it that way not because I'd planned this exact scenario, but because enough years in consulting had taught me that protecting your own work wasn't paranoia, it was survival. Files get stolen, credit gets reassigned, digital paper trails vanish with suspicious regularity. But now those same safeguards had a different job to do. I worked through the night, going through every system, every file, every document Harrison might need if the presentation went any deeper than surface-level slides. Made sure everything stayed locked. Made sure the locks were unbreakable without the passwords. Then I did one more thing. Blackwood and Associates ran a presentation system that auto-synced with cloud storage. Every time someone opened a file, it checked in to confirm it was the latest version, pulling any updates or linked data in real time. Meant to prevent version control problems. But it also meant the presentation depended entirely on that cloud connection, and if the linked files sitting in the cloud were inaccessible at 4 a.m. I built a new version of the pitch. Identical to what Harrison already had, except every data link, every embedded chart, every financial model connected straight back to the password-protected source files. I swapped it in for his version in the cloud. The presentation would open just fine. The slides would display. But the moment anyone asked a question requiring a dive into the numbers, a click-through to supporting documentation, or a demonstration of the implementation model, password required. At 6 a.m., I sent Harrison an email. Hope the presentation goes well today. Let me know if you need anything. I'll be at my desk. At 7 I went into the office. At 8:45, I watched on the internal camera feed as Harrison walked into that 42nd floor conference room, confident and smiling, about to present my work to 17 executives and an $8.7 million opportunity. At 9:15, I watched him discover exactly what happens when you steal from someone who understands systems better than you do. The meeting was scheduled to run 90 minutes. Harrison made it 45 before Diane Rothschild called for a break. The camera feed had no audio, but body language tells its own story, and words only confirm it. Harrison went from confident to flustered to something bordering on desperate. The slides advanced fine through the first section, the high-level overview, the problem statement, the strategic vision, everything that was just text and basic graphics. Then came the section where he needed to pull up the financial analysis. He clicked the embedded chart. Password required. He tried navigating to the supporting spreadsheet. Password required. He attempted to open the implementation model. Password required. 17 executives watched him fumble, watched him make excuses, watched him promise he'd pull the data from another source. There was no other source. I was the source. During the break, my desk phone rang. Harrison. His voice came out tight, controlled in the specific way people get when they're screaming internally but surrounded by witnesses. Dominique, I need the passwords now. Passwords for what? Don't play games. The financial models, the database, all of it. I need access. Oh, those supporting files. Those are password protected for security. I can pull whatever you need. What specifically? I need everything right now. They want to see the full analysis. I'm happy to help. Do you want me to come up to the conference room? I can walk everyone through it. No. Sharp. Fast. Just send me the passwords. The thing is, Harrison, there are about 15 different systems, each with a unique password. It might be faster if I just joined the meeting. I know the material pretty thoroughly. I could answer questions directly. Dominique. His voice dropped lower. Dangerous. Send me the passwords. The thing about power plays is they only work when both people agree on who holds the power. I don't think that's a good idea from a security standpoint, I said calmly. Those files contain proprietary methodology and sensitive client data. Company policy is pretty clear about password sharing. But like I said, I'm happy to present the supporting materials myself if Thornfield has questions. Silence on the other end, the kind where someone is calculating exactly how much they can threaten without witnesses present. We'll discuss this later, he finally said. The line went dead. The meeting resumed, ran another 30 minutes. Harrison did what he could with what he had, the surface-level slides, the high-concept strategy. But Diane Rothschild hadn't built a manufacturing empire by accepting executive summaries without interrogating the data underneath them. The camera showed her asking questions, pointing at slides, Harrison nodding, talking, gesturing, but without the supporting evidence, without the models and frameworks and analysis that gave the strategy its credibility. He was just a man in an expensive suit making expensive promises with nothing behind them. The meeting ended early. Handshakes all around, but the polite kind, not the enthusiastic kind, the kind that means we'll be in touch, which in corporate speak means don't call us. Harrison left the conference room. The hallway camera caught him walking toward the elevator, jaw clenched, hands forming fists and releasing, forming and releasing. I minimized the video feed and opened a fresh spreadsheet, started a proposal for a different client. Waited. He showed up at my desk 20 minutes later. My basement desk next to the humming servers, the space they'd relocated me to the week before. Better focus environment, Harrison had said. Fewer distractions. Really, it just meant out of sight, out of mind, out of the way. My office. Now. I saved my work, stood, followed him to the elevator. The ride up was silent. Harrison stared at the rising floor numbers like they'd personally insulted him, jaw twitching. 3 other people rode with us, colleagues from accounting, and their presence was probably the only thing holding back whatever was building behind his eyes. We reached the executive floor, walked the hallway lined with abstract art and track lighting, into his corner office with its Barcelona chair and carefully curated aesthetic. He shut the door, turned. What the hell was that? I sat in the Barcelona chair without waiting to be asked, crossed my legs, met his eyes. What was what? Don't. He caught himself, took a breath, leaned against the desk, arms crossed, shifting tactics. Reasonable, confused, disappointed. Dominique, I don't understand what happened. Why were all those files locked? We're on the same team here. Standard protocol. All my working files are password protected. It's standard practice. Is it? I must have missed that in the handbook. I can check if you'd like. His expression hardened. This isn't a game. No, it's not. It's an $8.7 million account that you just presented without proper supporting documentation. How did it go, by the way? It went fine. Really? Because it looked like Diane Rothschild had questions you couldn't answer. How would you know how it looked? You weren't there. You're right. I wasn't. I was holding down the fort like you asked. Harrison pushed off the desk, paced to the window, stared out at Chicago spread below like a game board. When he turned back, whatever reasonableness he'd been performing was gone. Let me be very clear. You will provide me with access to all files related to the Thornfield account immediately. They're company property, developed on company time, and your refusal to share them is insubordination. I haven't refused anything. You asked me to send passwords over the phone, which violates security policy. You asked me not to attend the meeting, which prevented me from presenting the materials in person. I've been nothing but cooperative within appropriate professional boundaries. Appropriate professional boundaries, he repeated like the words tasted bad. You tanked that presentation deliberately. I built that presentation. Spent 8 months building it. If it tanked, maybe the question is who was delivering it. His face went red. You have no idea what you've just done to your career. You're finished at this firm. I'll make sure of it. Do you understand? Finished, maybe. But you're finished with Thornfield, and everyone in this office is going to know why. No one will believe you. It's your word against mine, and I'm a partner. You're a senior consultant with an attitude problem. I pulled out my phone, opened the recording app, tapped stop on a recording that had been running since the elevator. 23 minutes of audio. Actually, it's your word against your own words, including the part where you just admitted the presentation tanked, and the part where you threatened my career for not violating security policy. Harrison stared at the phone. That's illegal. Illinois is a 2-party consent state. You're right, which is why I'm going to delete this right now, as soon as you and I have a very different conversation. The silence stretched. Outside, clouds drifted across the sky, indifferent to the small human dramas playing out in climate-controlled offices. What do you want? Harrison asked finally. First, credit. Full public credit for the Thornfield strategy. If by some miracle they don't cancel the contract entirely, my name goes on everything. I present, I implement, I lead. Done. What else? Blake Jensen gets promoted to senior consultant. He's been doing the work for 2 years without the title or the salary. That's not related to. It is now. Those are my terms. Harrison's hands clenched and unclenched. Fine. Jensen gets promoted. Anything else? Yes. I stood from the Barcelona chair, walked to his desk, set my phone down on its polished surface, the recording app still visible on the screen. You're going to call Diane Rothschild. You're going to tell her there was a technical issue with the presentation files, and you'd like to reschedule for later this week. You're going to tell her I'll be presenting the full strategy, and that you'll be there in a supporting capacity. She'll never agree to. She will, because you're going to tell her the truth that I developed the entire strategy, and that having me present ensures she gets direct access to the subject matter expert. You're going to frame it as Blackwood and Associates bringing our A-team. Client-focused, transparent, all the buzzwords you love. Harrison shook his head slowly. And if I refuse, then I delete this recording like I promised and we both lose. You lose Thornfield because you can't present what you don't understand. I lose because you'll fire me, and you're well connected enough to make my life difficult across Chicago consulting circles. So why give me the option? Because believe it or not, I don't actually want to destroy you. I want to do good work. I want credit for that work. And I want to work somewhere competence matters more than seniority, or gender, or who plays golf with whom. This is about gender now? Harrison, when's the last time you excluded a male senior consultant from a major presentation they developed? He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. I picked up my phone. Here's what happens now. You call Diane. You reschedule. I present the Thornfield strategy properly, with full access to all the supporting materials. We win that contract. And when we do, you get credit too for managing the client relationship, for bringing me onto the project, for building a team that delivers results. Why would you let me have any credit? Because that's how teams actually work. Everyone contributes. Everyone benefits. Revolutionary concept, I know. Harrison looked at me for a long moment, calculating, weighing angles. If I do this, he said slowly, the recording gets deleted. Permanently. And you never mention this conversation to anyone. It'll be our secret. He walked to his desk, sat, pulled up his contacts, found Diane Rothschild's number. I watched him make the call, watched him turn on the charm, the apologies, the smoothness, watched him sell the rescheduled presentation exactly the way I'd laid it out, watched him hang up and look at me with an expression I couldn't quite place. Anger, respect, resentment all tangled together. Friday morning, he said. 10 a.m. She's giving us one more shot. We won't need another one. I held up my phone, deleted the recording with deliberate slowness, making sure he saw the file deleted confirmation. We're done here? Harrison asked. Almost. One more thing. Of course there is. I want an office. Not a corner office, nothing extravagant. Just something with a door and a window. Somewhere above ground. The smallest smile cracked across his face. You drive a hard bargain, Dominique. I learned from the best. I wasn't sure if he meant that as a compliment or an insult. Maybe both. Friday morning arrived with Chicago rain. The cold, persistent kind that makes the whole city look like a noir film. I wore my best suit, navy with subtle pinstripes, and the heels that added 3 inches of height. Confidence is half performance. Blake caught me at the elevator. I heard you're presenting Thornfield. News travels fast. Are you insane? Harrison's going to sabotage you. No, he's not. We have an understanding. An understanding. Blake laughed, but there was no amusement in it. Dom, I've seen him destroy people's careers for less than what you pulled. Whatever understanding you think you have, it won't protect you. Maybe not, but I'd rather go down swinging than fade away quietly. The elevator arrived. We rode up in silence until Blake spoke again. For what it's worth, I think you're the best strategist in this firm. Maybe the best I've ever worked with. You're getting promoted, by the way. Senior consultant. Should be announced next week. His eyes went wide. What? How? You earned it 2 years ago. Someone just needed to remind Harrison. The doors opened on the 42nd floor. Same conference room from Tuesday, same mahogany table, same floor-to-ceiling windows, same leather chairs. But a different energy entirely. Diane Rothschild and her team were already seated. Coffee in china cups. Notepads open, expressions politely skeptical. Harrison stood when I walked in, smiled, played his part. Diane, let me introduce Dominique Chan, our lead strategist on the Thornfield account. Dominique has been the architect of everything you're about to see, and I wanted to make sure you had direct access to her expertise. Diane stood, shook my hand. Her grip was firm, evaluating. Miss Chan, Harrison speaks highly of your work. I appreciate the opportunity to present it properly. We sat. I opened my laptop, the presentation already loaded. Every password entered this time. Every file accessible. Every system ready. Then I began. Not with slides. With a question. When you think about Thornfield Industries' efficiency problems, what do you believe is the root cause? Diane considered outdated equipment, manufacturing processes that haven't kept pace with technological advancement. That's what your operations team believes, and they're partially right. There are equipment issues, but equipment is a symptom, not the disease. I pulled up the first slide. A timeline of Thornfield's acquisitions. Over 12 years, Thornfield acquired 7 competitors. Each acquisition brought revenue, market share, operational infrastructure. But infrastructure includes more than machinery. It includes processes, protocols, software systems, communication patterns, corporate culture. And here's what never happened after any of those acquisitions. Integration. Next slide. A diagram of the operational silos inside Thornfield. Right now, your Milwaukee facility runs one manufacturing protocol. Your Cleveland facility runs another. Your Phoenix facility runs a third. The equipment isn't failing. The people operating it are being asked to follow contradictory instructions that shift depending on which legacy company's system they happen to be working within. I walked them through the research, the data, the interviews I'd conducted with floor managers who described the daily chaos of navigating incompatible systems, the analysis showing equipment failures clustering around the handoff points between different operational protocols. 40 minutes in, Diane held up a hand. This is very compelling, Ms. Chun, but identifying the problem is one thing. Solving it is another. Your proposal is organizational restructuring and workforce retraining. That's expensive, disruptive, and risky. You're right. It's all of those things, which is why we don't do it all at once. I pulled up the implementation framework, the piece I'd spent 3 months building, the roadmap that broke an overwhelming transformation into manageable phases. Phase 1 is a pilot program at your smallest facility, Boise, Idaho. 300 employees, 1 product line. We implement the integrated protocol there, train the workforce, monitor results. Timeline for months. Cost $340,000. If it works, you see efficiency gains of roughly 18% based on our models. If it doesn't, you've spent under 1% of your annual inefficiency loss and you shut it down. Diane leaned forward. So did her VP of operations. I had them. Phase 2, assuming Phase 1 succeeds, expands to 3 mid-size facilities simultaneously. We use the Boise team as internal trainers, people teaching people, which drives cultural buy-in. Timeline 6 months. Cost $1.2 million. Projected efficiency gains 22% at those facilities. I clicked through the roadmap phase by phase, facility by facility, showing how the transformation scaled, how risk was mitigated at every step, how they could pull back at any point if results didn't materialize. By Phase 4, you're operating on a unified system across every facility. Total timeline 2.5 years. Total cost $6.3 million. Projected efficiency gains 31% company-wide. That translates to recovering $13.3 million annually against your current $43 million in inefficiency losses. An ROI of 211% in the first year post-implementation alone. The room went quiet, the kind of quiet where people are calculating, imagining what success actually looks like. Diane's chief financial officer spoke up. These projections are based on what, exactly? Theoretical models? Hybrid approach. Theoretical models validated against 3 case studies from similar transformations in adjacent industries. I can walk through each one if you'd like. Please. So I did, pulled up the case studies, manufacturing companies that had faced similar post-acquisition integration challenges, showed their before and after metrics, showed how the efficiency gains materialized, showed the common factors that predicted success. An hour and 40 minutes after I'd started, I closed the laptop. That's the strategy. Complicated, yes. Expensive, absolutely. But compared to the cost of staying on your current trajectory, it's not even close. You're losing $43 million a year right now. That's $117,000 every single day. This transformation pays for itself in under 6 months and keeps generating value for years after. Diane sat back, looked at her team, looked at Harrison, looked at me. Ms. Chun, this is the most thorough strategic analysis Thornfield has received from any consulting firm in 10 years, and we've talked to a lot of consulting firms. Thank you. I have one question. Of course. Why weren't you in the room on Tuesday? The question sat there. Harrison's expression didn't move, but something flickered behind his eyes. Warning, maybe, or fear. I could have lied. Could have made an excuse. could have protected him. Instead, I told a version of the truth. Tuesday was intended as a high-level overview presented at the partner level. Today was always planned as the deep-dive technical presentation. We wanted to make sure you got both perspectives, strategic vision from Harrison, implementation detail from me. It wasn't quite a lie. It also wasn't quite the truth. But it gave Harrison cover while making clear who'd actually done the work. Diane nodded slowly. She didn't fully believe me, I could tell, but she appreciated the diplomacy. Well, I'm glad we got to today. Harrison, can you give us the room? I'd like to speak with Miss Chan and my team privately. Harrison stood. He caught my eye for just a second, something like gratitude maybe, or possibly warning. Hard to tell. He left. Diane waited until the door closed, then turned back to me. All right, Miss Chun, let's talk about what implementation actually looks like. Because I want Blackwood and Associates on this project. Specifically, I want you on this project. But I need to know you'll be the one in the room, not just your boss taking credit for your work. The Thornfield contract was signed 3 weeks later. $8.7 million over 3 years, with performance bonuses that could push it past $10 million if we hit certain efficiency benchmarks. Harrison got credit for bringing in the account. I got credit for developing and leading the strategy. Blake got his promotion and a role on the implementation team. The company-wide announcement went out. Blackwood and Associates' biggest contract in 5 years. A photo of Harrison and me shaking hands with Diane Rothschild in front of the company logo. A press release praising innovative strategic solutions and collaborative partnership. On paper, everything looked perfect. Reality was messier. Harrison and I settled into a kind of détente, not a friendship. We worked together professionally. He stopped stealing credit outright, but he also stopped handing me opportunities to shine without a fight. Every promotion, every new account, every piece of recognition had to be negotiated, defended, proven all over again. But I'd learned something in that conference room, something about the difference between power that's given and power that's taken. The system wasn't going to change because I'd won one battle. The Harrisons of the world would keep being Harrison. The inequality, the credit stealing, the casual dismissal of competence in favor of seniority in politics, none of it disappeared just because I'd password-protected some files and forced a reckoning. But I'd changed. I'd learned exactly where the lines sat, and that sometimes crossing them is the only way to redraw the map. 6 months into the Thornfield implementation, I was out in Boise at the pilot facility. Phase 1 was running ahead of schedule. Efficiency gains tracking at 21%, 3 points above projection. The floor managers I'd interviewed during the research phase were now the ones training their own teams on the new integrated protocols. They'd gone from frustrated to engaged, from obstacles to advocates. Diane came out for the progress review, walked the factory floor, talked to workers, reviewed the metrics. At the end of the day, we sat in the facility's conference room. Much smaller than the 42nd floor in Chicago. Much more functional. You were right, she said simply. This wasn't an equipment problem. It was a people problem. Or rather, a people potential problem. They wanted to do good work. We just kept getting in their way. That's most organizations, honestly. Good people, bad systems. Blackwood and Associates is lucky to have you, Dominique. I appreciate that. Diane looked at me with that same evaluating expression from our first meeting. How long are you planning to stay there? I haven't really thought about it. You should. When you're ready for something different, Thornfield is always looking for people who actually solve problems instead of just talking about solving them. It wasn't quite a job offer, but it wasn't not one either. I filed it away and kept working. The Boise pilot wrapped successfully. Phase 2 launched, then Phase 3. The transformation rolled out exactly like the roadmap I'd built, with every predicted challenge met by a prepared solution. Blake thrived in his new role. Turned out he had a gift for training and change management, taking complicated concepts and making them accessible without ever sounding condescending. He made people feel capable, which might be the single most valuable skill in consulting. You changed this firm, he told me once during a late-night working session in Phoenix, even if nobody admits it. I changed one situation. The firm is exactly the same as it always was. No, it's not. People saw what happened. Junior consultants, women especially. They saw you stand up. They saw you win. That matters. Maybe it did. Maybe small shifts in what people believed was possible added up to something bigger. Or maybe that was just optimistic thinking. Either way, the work continued. 2 years later, Thornfield's transformation had exceeded every projection. Efficiency gains hit 29%, recovering $11.8 million annually. Harvard Business Review published a case study on my framework. Then Diane called with an offer. Chief Operating Integration Officer. Vice President.
$280,000 base, plus equity.
Real authority this time, not just recommendations. I gave my notice. Harrison surprised me with an apology, the first time he'd ever acknowledged what happened. You made me better, he said, even when I didn't make it easy. I just refused to disappear quietly. My last day, I packed up my office and drove home feeling something I hadn't let myself feel in 3 years. Proud. Not of the outcome, but of fighting back. The system won't change overnight, but I changed, and sometimes that's everything. This channel is building toward 2,000 subscribers. If stories about standing up resonate with you, join us. The work continues, and so do the victories.